So at this point, we all know your resume is the most important part of your job hunt. It's the only thing that gets you through ATS and auto parsers. It's the first thing any recruiter sees. And even if you survive all of that, it's what sets the tone for your interview conversation later on. And so when I started my own job hunt more recently, the first thing I did was dig up my old resume from college. And while the content was mostly the same, there were so many little mistakes that I only realized after having worked in industry for a few years. So I integrated that experience into my old resume, I overhauled the entire thing, and made some fundamental changes that wound up helping me land exactly the type of job I was looking for and increase my salary by 50% while doing so. So in today's video, I want to break down those changes so hopefully you can replicate that success. I'm the Unhinged Engineer, and I make professional development content for young people working in STEM like myself. If you're trying to grow your career, you're fresh out of school or maybe still in, and you're trying to get your bearings as we progress, then this is a channel for you. I'd highly recommend you like, comment, subscribe for some valuable content as you go on this journey as I am right now. And so without further ado, let's get right into this old resume and some of the ways that we made it a heck of a lot better and got much better results. All right, guys, so this is my old resume from right after I graduated college. And before we get into the changes I made between this resume and the new one I'll show you shortly, I just want to talk about the couple of things that actually happened in my career and have changed since then. So the only stuff that's really missing from this resume is the actual experience, like bullets describing what I did in this first job, and me starting night school. So I only have my bachelor's here. And so if you take a look at my new resume, that's pretty much all that's different. So I started my master's degree. I'm not nearly done with it yet. And I added some actual work I did for that first position right out of school. But aside from that, like all of these old positions are pretty much the same. And the only other changes I made were actually removing things, which we'll get into pretty shortly. Yeah, I want to start just talking about the formatting here, because I think that's honestly huge. I have a lot of this fancy stuff going on that even if it is eye-catching, which I'll leave that up for you to determine, it's just weird. Like these stupid little bullets I have, all the italics going on, right? Like there's a lot of stuff going on visually. And I think it does look pretty, quote unquote pretty, but that's not what's most important. The first thing that's actually gonna see your resume is a parser. And so with all this weird, like these big gaps going on here, this is my name and my contact info at the top, like everything's kind of scattered all over the place. And I remember I would enter my resume into Workday and then it would come out like a jumbled mess. And at first I used to just think Workday was crappy. I mean, it is crappy, but that's besides the point, right? With more standard like templates, the parsing actually goes much more smoothly, and as a result, it catches on many more of these keywords. So if you have seen Jake's resume before, Jake's resume template, so it's like a free, publicly available LaTeX kind of document that you can edit yourself. You kind of like pull it like you would clone a Git repo, and then you enter in your experience in LaTeX. LaTeX is not that hard. It's way easier than even like HTML. And so one of the perks of using Jake's resume template is that everything comes out standardized, which is beautiful. And when they're looking at my resume versus somebody else's, it just kind of looks familiar and it looks professional by extension. So everything's comparable to the human eye, which is great. And it's much easier for these resumes to parse. It's just a LaTeX document. It's just a plain old PDF. There's nothing weird going on like there was when I actually spiced all this up in Adobe Acrobat or God forbid Word or something else like that. So formatting, like you don't think about it up front, especially if your resume actually looks nice. Like for the record, I do think all these italics and different things going on does look nice to the human eye. But in reality, the most important kind of checkpoint at first is actually getting through the parser, right? And so if you can't do that, a human's never even gonna see all your pretty stuff in there. So I would highly, highly advise using Jake's resume template. There are other templates available. This is just the one I'm most familiar with. I'll probably make a video at some point kind of breaking down different templates, what I like about them, what I don't. But yeah, I think Jake's resume template is a great place to start. And even if you don't like this for whatever reason, just go find something that you've seen before in the wild, whether it's when you were recruiting, if you worked a few jobs before, or kind of talking back and forth with your friends if you're also looking for jobs in school. So that's kind of overall what I want to talk about with the formatting. There is one little piece of prettification, for lack of a better word, that I do actually stand by and have maintained into this new template, and that's bolding keywords. As far as I can tell, bolding different keywords like 6-degree freedom simulations, that's like a huge thing in aerospace, which is what I work in. Bolding some of these key, like virtual machines, as far as I can tell, it doesn't really change how it's parsed at all. Like, I don't think parsers care whether or not it's bold, but once it does get to the human, it does actually look much better. And so I've been doing that since my old resume here. You can see I still stand by it. I think it's a great strategy, but yeah, aside from that, I would keep it short and sweet, because now if you leave everything else short and sweet and nice and standard, when they look at the bolded words and say, oh my god, this guy's worked on GPUs, that's great, right? It just jumps off the page. It's much easier to decipher what's going on as a recruiter who only has like 30 seconds in the first place. All right, let's go back to my old resume here. The next thing I want to talk about is section ordering. And so there's two big complaints I have with this old resume of mine. The first is that kind of skills are at the top, and I'm not a fan of that. I think that, you know, all of my skills kind of crop up over time in these experiences that I list out here. Like, you can kind of match them up as you go through and look at the skills. So if you list them at the end, which is what Jake's template does here, what kind of happens is, like, the proof is in the pudding. They read through all of your experiences, they pick up on, oh, this guy's worked on GPUs or FPGAs or used PyTorch and stuff. And as they go through, they get to the end, and the skills section kind of serves as like a summary of, hey, these are all the things you probably skimmed as you went through. Versus if you list it at the top, they kind of just have to take your word for it. Like, you haven't actually shown that these are skills you can be reasonably expected to have. So I really like having my skills kind of at the bottom. Another thing I think is pretty strange here, I honestly don't know why it's this, is I have engineering experience and then I have work experience. This is pretty strange to me, and it kind of alludes to a larger problem, which if something is work experience but not engineering experience, and I'm trying to get an engineering job, it probably shouldn't be there in the first place. So there's some stuff in here that is not really related at all. And if you look down to my Jake's resume template here, there's just one experience section, and there's a lot less content, which I'm going to talk about more on what to actually focus on in terms of the content in the next section, because I think that's the last thing after you get through the formatting and the section ordering and everything else. But I do want to allude to it here because it's pretty obvious. Like, why is this work experience here? Like, if I worked in Denny's in high school, it would probably be in work experience, but not in engineering experience, and that's strange. On this point with this weird work experience section, I do want to talk about like the one-page debate. As you go through school, everybody and their mother tells you it has to be one page, it has to be one page, it has to be one page. And I think that's kind of foolish, because as you go on in your career, resumes do get much longer than one page, especially CVs if you're doing research or academic type stuff. So I think overall, just blanket telling people that one page is the max you can have is kind of silly. However, I do understand why they do it. Because at the end of the day, if you're reaching for experiences that don't really have anything to do with the jobs you're applying for, and it gets really big and bloated, then that's really bad, right? It just makes it much less coherent and clear of an experience for the recruiter to understand why you're a good fit for the job, which is ultimately what we want to happen. And so if you're like coming out of school, just like I was, and you have enough quote unquote experiences to fill up more than one page, you're probably just putting in fluff. And so that's why I think it's, in general, a good policy to keep it under one page. And so when I went back and I started trying to spice things up for my new resume, I axed like a ton of content, right? Some of which was actually technical, right? So I'll give you two examples here. Number one, everything's redacted, so you can't really tell. But this position, this advanced computing position, so you can see here it's empty because I hadn't entered the experience yet. But that and this were for the same company, right? So I interned here, I took a little sabbatical to go do a different internship, and then came back to that first experience because I really had a good one. So what I did more recently when I was looking to leave that job and get a new one is I took the best bullet from here, which I think is this one, and I just put it into the overall, yeah, here it is. I kind of like synthesized the different bullets into one overall bullet, summarizing the work I did for the internship, and just put it in there with the rest of my experience I had at this company. So at the end of the day, like it's still kind of the same work, it gets the same point across. And I said in my interview that I did actually intern there first, and that's how I got the job. Another example here, aside from the obvious, which is like all this, EMTing stuff, and I was a hockey referee in high school. I actually think this stuff's really great for LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, there's more space, it's kind of more casual. People peruse through each other's LinkedIns, I know I do. And so if you want to have some extra stuff about you that sets context, I don't think this is harmful to have on your LinkedIn at all. But your resume has to be like surgical, like quick and clean. They can immediately see why you're a good fit for the job you're applying for. But like if you look here, this mechanical engineering position, I completely scrapped just because I'm not looking for jobs as a mechanical engineer anymore. And these two things, again, were kind of at the same place, right? I was running this project in the lab and I was managing the lab overall. And so in my new resume, I basically just had the project, right? This is the project. I removed project manager because there's too much stuff going on. But it's basically the same project. And so I kind of scrapped like the menial stuff of like, established the systems engineering workflow and collaborated with people and stuff. Again, this is all fluff that when I get to the focus section next, you really just don't need. So look at the sections of not only, the different sections of your resume, but also the ways you chunk out your work experience and try to consolidate that as much as possible so that it's quick and clean to read through. So one thing I want to point out about the old resume versus the new is the number of bullets in each experience now. So we've talked about having the format clean and concise. We've talked about having the sections be clean and concise. And now let's get into the actual content of the resume itself. So doing a quick count here, 4 bullets here, 4 here, 5 there, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3. And then even here, 3 and 2. So there's a pretty uniform distribution of how much real estate I give each position here. Now look at my new resume. My new resume, 4 bullets here, 4 bullets here, 3, 2, 2, 1. So there's a steeper drop off in terms of which positions get which amount of bullets. And what I'm trying to allude to here with the numbers is that you really want your resume to scream why you're a good fit for a specific job, right? And so this is why like some people actually go as far as to have multiple resumes for different types of positions they're applying for. In my old resume, I kind of just was like throwing shit at the wall, like as many things as I could meaningfully extract from each position and just hurling them into my resume. And that's kind of why the font is so small. I can't remember if the font is like 11 or 10 here, but it's too small. It's hard to read. So people get tired. They only have 30 seconds to read this resume anyway. And so if everything's getting the same amount of bullets, and I even remember feeling like, 3 bullets isn't enough for this position. I got to add something else. And then, I added a bullet that says I built the thing. Duh. There's no pressure to have them all have the same amount. I would honestly advise they don't all have the same amount because it shows like you're trying to tailor your resume to the job you're actually looking for. So for me, like I know for a fact, these 3 experiences are the most important. They definitely were the most important for what I interviewed for and ultimately took on as my current job. This is a hackathon. This isn't even like a real job. And then these 2 are research I did in undergrad, which are great. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for I'm starting to get into mid-career positions. And so these are the things that they really care about. Like a couple internships at good companies, and then the motherlode, my actual entry-level job I got out of college. So overall, I would really advise that you don't be afraid to have dramatically different amounts of real estate for different projects, depending on how important you think they are to the recruiters for the kinds of jobs you're trying to get. And speaking of those bullets, I think there's lots of ways that you can consolidate them and again, keep them quick and clean. The best method I've seen is like the XYZ method. So a lot of methods like this, like the STAR method or this 1-page rule, or these different things. Like I think as aphorisms, they're kind of too simplistic. The one exception to that I've really seen work well is the XYZ method, which I have listed here. So the XYZ method says X is what you did, Y is how you did it, and Z is the results and impact. So I did X using Y, achieving Z. That's like a standard format that you should have for every bullet. So let's take a look at this one, right? So I was doing some neural network quantization stuff for edge computing here, and I say, what did I do? So this is X. I designed, trained, and synthesized a neural network for RF modulation classification. Now how? I did it on an FPGA using PyTorch, Onyx, and other tooling. And what was the result of that? Well, when we ran this neural network on this FPGA versus other things, it ran at reduced power consumption, like 25% reduced power consumption. So having that format here is really strong. Let me try to find one more. I probably should have done this beforehand. Developed 6-degree freedom simulation environment with realistic orbital mechanics and satellite performance, allowing agents to autonomously find desired orbit trajectories and calculate thruster burns. Right, so this one's actually kind of missing the why, the how I did it, right? XYZ, but I do have that, like, this is the software I used, these are some of the different infrastructure tools we use. So even if like every bullet doesn't have every part of XYZ, having this general mindset of, look, I want to say not only what I did, but also how I did it and the results it gleaned if possible, that strategy is really strong, and again, keeps everything quick and to the point, which is great. So yeah, I would really advise the XYZ method because it just shows that you can like drive solutions, solve problems, get things done. Versus like on my old resume, let's try to find some meandering bullets that don't kind of really get anything across. Like here, okay. Utilize systems engineering methodology and documentation while adhering to NASA requirements. Cool. Like I got to, name drop NASA in there. It doesn't really show that I actually, even this one, which is good because it has a number, right? One thing I would add is that numbers are always good. We're engineers, we like numbers. So it's great that I show, how much money we had to budget for this project. That's pretty cool. But like, budgeted it to do what? I mean, I've described the project overall, but at the end of the day, like each bullet should kind of be a contained system that has a beginning, a middle, and end. And that's what I think the XYZ method really illustrates. What you did, how you did it, and what it achieved. Beginning, middle, end. So yeah, I would really try to stick to that XYZ method strategy. And like I just said, numbers are great. Numbers are great, keywords are great, bold them if you use them, right? But I have a lot more numbers in my new resume. So 25% reduction, 3x speed up there. Yeah, numbers are really good. I have that budget in there now and team size, stuff like that. So yeah, overall, what I'm just trying to get at with the focus point here is that you don't have to be a good fit for every job. You just have to be a good fit for the job you want. And so really make sure that your resume, like, you don't want your resume to just be like, oh, look how impressive this person is. That's the wrong mindset to take. Because then if that's what you're trying to achieve, you just hurl as much stuff as you can at every experience you've had. And to be honest, like, I kind of do this for my LinkedIn. I just throw crap at the wall on my LinkedIn because it's different. Public facing, it's like I don't send people my LinkedIn when I'm looking for jobs. I send people my resume. Like one of them's like a hammer, right? Like everything looks like a nail once you have a hammer. Your LinkedIn's kind of your hammer here, and this is like a very hammer approach where everything has the same amount of bullets and I'm just kind of shotgun blasting at the wall. In reality, like something I've learned after having interviewed a few people myself in industry is like, you want to be much more surgical. You want your resume to be like a scalpel that just cuts through all the noise, which unfortunately in this case, the noise is all the other applicants, cuts through all of that like a knife and then gets you right to the door. Okay guys, that's basically it. So I have both my resumes here at the top in case you want to comb through it during the outro, but just to recap what we talked about today, I think there's two big points. Number one, your formatting should be as simple as possible while still serving the content. So use a standardized template like Jake's resume template I have on the right here that just keeps everything nice and clean, nice and parsable for any computers to take a stab at it. And in terms of your sections, consolidate and simplify things as much as possible. Don't break it up into like 8 different sections. Don't have your skills at the top, which kind of undermines all the experience that's gonna come later anyway. Make it nice and like logical flow. Like Jake's resume template is great again because it's got, this is where I went to school, this is what I've done at work, and these are some of the technical skills I have. Sorry if my head is blocking them. But At the end of the day, your formatting should really just be a frame around the content. You don't have to make it nice and pretty and fancy like I felt this urge to do in college. The second point I want to talk about here is focus. Again, your resume is not your life story. It's just a highlight reel. It's just a highlight reel that should scream as loud as possible and precisely as possible why you are a good fit for that job. So if you're like me and you like having something, really bare bones, cut and dry, then I would just advise you have one resume that's super streamlined. But if for whatever reason you disregard what I said and you want different resumes that explore different parts of your different experiences and the progression of your career, then I would advise you have multiple. Because at the end of the day, it's a one-to-one comparison. There's one job and one resume. You don't have to be a good fit for every job, just the one you want. And your resume should reflect that. If you want to do fancy things later on with like your LinkedIn or even making a YouTube channel like I have, by all means, go for it. But at the end of the day, your resume has to be really, really surgical. I hope this helped you. I know for a fact it helped me. These were lessons I only really learned kind of getting the other side of the recruiting experience. I've interviewed people to work alongside me in the labs I've worked at. I've gone to career fairs and I've seen other people progress through their careers like I have to different levels of success. Some people blasting further ahead than me because they've learned these lessons earlier, and other ones kind of struggling despite having really good experience because they don't know how to present it well on the resume. And so having a little bit more context of how the real world works after college has really, really taught me what makes a good resume versus a great resume. And I like to think this one I have on the right is pretty great. It definitely got me the results I was looking for. And so I hope if you leverage some of the lessons I've learned that you get the results you're looking for too. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm the Unhinged Engineer. I make professional development content for other engineers like me because I know that navigating the career space, especially at this time, is really, really stressful and confusing. And so as I'm learning lessons about how to actually lead a successful career as an engineer, because I have news for you, it's a lot more than just math, I'm trying to share those lessons with other people like you. So again, if that's something you're interested in, please like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to comment as well if you agree or disagree with any of these pieces of advice I gave here. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.